Hello everyone, we're going to be taking a look at the Lebanese Chess Championship Round 2 2022 Lebanese Chess Championship. So first we're going to analyze two games, deeply analyze them, and we'll go through the other games as I said very quickly. By the way, just a note, I'm going to have the table up, the standings up for the third round, but for now it doesn't matter much. Just want to make sure of something in OBS. Everything seems to be working okay. Alright, so let's start off. Nadim Hammoud against Amro Jawich. Now I'm a bit surprised Nadim is rated only 1800. I think he used to be rated over 2000, and that's his playing strength, of course, but I guess he might have had a bad run, and he's been working quite long hours for the past 2 or 3 years, so that is definitely a factor. Anyway, we have a normal closed Sicilian, and Amr going for this kingside fianchetto, which he usually does against the closed Sicilian. And we get to see h5. Amr signaling that a kingside attack is coming. Amr doesn't want to castle and just wants to mate Nadim as quickly as possible. Instead, more normal moves like bishop g4, which is a simple developing move, rook b8, preparing b5, knight f6, another simple developing move. All of these were possible. Instead, Amr goes for h5, trying really hard to go for Nadim's king. So h3, trying to meet h4 with g4, which would close down the kingside, allowing white to better parry white's black's attack. And now e5, a clever move by Amr, preventing, mainly controlling d4 of course, but also preventing any future e5 sacrificial idea by white, which might open up the position in white's favor at some point later on in the game. d3, developing the bishop and just getting pawn in the center, seems not in the center, but supporting the center seems normal. And h4, which is interesting, can be played. I kind of gave it a dubious mark more than interesting, but it's between interesting and dubious. But instead, knight g7 was probably better. Going for a slow approach, bishop e6, queen d7, long castles, and going from there. But instead, black wants to go for the kill right away, and he goes h4. Note that something like knight takes h4, while perhaps possible, and here the engine finds some way to defend. It's not really warranted to play like this alongside king g2 ideas later. It's not really necessary, of course. So you just play g4 in line with why you played h3. But Amr is insistent and plays f5. Now, you might think, how is f5 even justified? Like seriously, how is f5 even justified? Your king is in the center, you're opening up so many potential light square weaknesses. How is this even justified? Well, the reason is that actually there is nothing concrete that can take advantage of the white king. And you notice by closing the center as such, this is what Amr was preparing. By closing the center, there isn't anything immediate against the king, and white will face some problems trying to defend these two pawns, especially on the king side. So he takes, and goes knight h2, which is not really accurate, but it's difficult to see why. Now knight g5 was the best move, but it kind of feels weird putting the knight there and just like putting it in your opponent's camp where it might not even come back at some point in the game. But here you should be confident that it will come back. So knight g5 was possible. The reason it will come back is you have a4 and you have bishop d5, making use of the weakened diagonal where you can make use of this diagonal, for example. So after f4, for example, trying to trap the knight, you have knight g4, and any d5 is met by knight takes c5, so white is fine. White is better. After knight h2, it's a bit of a mistake because now black is able to play bishop e6 and go for the familiar setup we looked at. And after f4, which is quite interesting actually, because also you're trying your best to open up the position before the black king escapes. Black just plays queen d7 and prepares long castles and tries to escape that way. Now instead of f4 there was the potential to take, And now play for this sort of plan. Put your knight on g4. I know the arrows are a bit confusing. Your bishop usually comes to e3, but sometimes to g5 if the queen comes to d7. Your knight on g4 really solidifies the squares and takes control of f6 and h6 in some positions. The knight on d5 is on a very natural square, and the bishop can potentially come to e4 to trade off the strong light squared bishop, especially when the knight is on g4, so because you don't have to worry about any h3 ideas, h3 weakness. And c3 also prevents knight d4. So this is a sort of plan white could have gone for. Instead he goes f4, which is of course reasonable, if somewhat hyper aggressive. And bishop takes, and now the losing move, unfortunately, is bishop d5. So this game promised a lot. We could have seen something similar to what we were saying before, after 12 g takes f5, 14 g takes f5 as well. Unfortunately, this game ended in a spectacular fashion here after white just plundered the piece. This game promised a lot. Both players super strong and well known in the Lebanese circuit. It's a bit unfortunate it had to end this way for Nadim in this game. Plays bishop d5, forgetting that after takes, there's a check, and just down a piece. Now he may have thought after this he had rook e1, pinning the queen and winning it, but you're not winning it. And even something like knight e5, c3, there's bishop f2 escaping. So both don't work. Unfortunate. He continued here, but of course against Amr, you need an extra piece. So losing a piece is not going to work. So a very promising game. It promised a lot of fireworks, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. Now this game is even more spectacular because it's a very long game, and wow, there are so many phases to the game. The first phase is when Faisal outplayed Joe in the opening and got some sort of advantage due to a tactical / positional trick. And the second phase of the game is when Joe defended brilliantly. Then the third phase of the game is when Joe blundered in the very late endgame and Faisal was converting. And the fourth phase is when Joe started tricking Faisal and he had a win. And then the fifth phase is when I think Faisal also had a win. So, and the sixth phase is when they drew eventually. So topsy-turvy game. So let's take a look. So Joe has been switching up his openings. He used to play the Dutch exclusively. Now he's playing some other openings. He's assaying the Queen's Gambit declined here. And Faisal goes for this exchange variation, the positional variation of the exchange variation. And he goes for a Kasparovian setup with knight e2 and f3. This is the way Kasparov likes to play. Kasparov. And rook a d1 here. A normal move. And queen a5. Now queen a5 isn't so great. Rook c8 would have been more prudent, perhaps intending c5. Queen a5, the problem is the queen is kind of misplaced. Eventually it runs into problems. And queen d2 is a very clever way to make the queen run into problems. The threat is basically knight e4, and in some positions maybe knight d takes d5, but of course mainly it's knight e4. And this is actually what happens in the game. So Joe misses this threat and goes rook a d8, or he miscalculated it. I'm sure he didn't miss it because Joe calculates very well, especially in the early phases. He takes his time in classical. Queen c7 and queen d8 would have been better. Queen d8 is a very almost impossible move because you have to basically admit that you made a mistake, which is not happening in most cases. So yeah, but it should have been played, of course. Knight g6 was also an interesting alternative. After bishop g3 you take the game from here, maybe retreat queen d8. The reason, of course, this works, knight g6, is bishop takes g6 after takes g6. This might seem bad, especially for people who are afraid of doubled pawns, but no, this is actually quite good for black. g5 can be played, bishop f7, can and should, then bishop g6, relocating the bishop, then bishop d6. You have splendid bishops. Your pawn structure isn't at all a problem because white doesn't even have a light squared bishop to take control of the light squares, and your bishop on g3, for example, can enjoy some nice squares. No, that was for black. For white, yeah, so for black, your bishop on d6 can enjoy some nice squares. So rook a8, missing the tactico. Bishop takes f6, and now knight e4. The point being, of course, after queen takes d2, which happened, you can take. Now, of course, you just, yeah, you can take, obviously. I'll put it just in case some people are wondering. Now you do win 2 minor pieces, but of course that's nowhere near enough, especially in this position. And here this is it technically, I wouldn't say winning actually, as the game showed, and you'll see why in a second. But this is a technically much better position for white, and should be winning in a practical game, which it kind of did. Now Joe is very good at defending, and very good at attacking, but like I would say his defensive prowess lies in this kind of like where does Joe mess up? When it's the defense required is kind of aggressive, even though he's an aggressive player, sometimes he misses some of these things. But when the defense required is like this very accurate positional stuff, he's very good at that, and you'll see how in this game. Now here white is just going to needs to improve his position. He starts getting the king into the game, starts pushing pawns on the king side, creates some weaknesses, makes use of the weaknesses already present, and creates some weaknesses here by going for some sort of minority attack, which is exactly what he did. So let's zoom through this part of the game rather quickly. There isn't much to discuss, it's a bit of shuffle chess, and I've already explained the plans. So zooming through. Here, by the way, there's an interesting option, a4, but intending to go b5. But after knight d7, the rook is trapped after b6, and you can't come here because of the knight. So but you accept this trap and go like this, and go for this position, which is rather interesting. White should have an advantage, but I'm not sure it's winning. Actually, to be honest, compared to what happened in the game, this kind of position may be maybe easier to play for white and more difficult for black to defend. What happened in the game is that, of course, there's this plan, a4, rook c5, rook b1, also an interesting plan. What happened in the game, though, is that basically all of this shuffling stuff, white didn't seem to be able to break through. And here we'll notice something about this weird maneuver, like here you just retreat to d6, of course. Instead, Joe went deeper into the opponent's camp, which is somewhat strange, I find. But he wanted to say that, okay, the knight gets to c4. Now, the thing is, he's making his opponent's pawns, more of them on dark squares, so this bishop is particularly bad. So I'm not sure this was the best approach, but even then, it's still, I think, objectively drawn or a fortress, because you can't see how white can make immediate progress. But Faisal sure as heck tried, and here he starts getting somewhere because Joe blundered. Rook a7, keeping an eye on the a6 pawn was absolutely necessary. Instead, rook e8, and now you're going to basically lose the a6 pawn. Now this is difficult to foresee. That's why here Faisal played rook g1, a normal looking move, but it actually ruins white's advantage. I should annotate this as a mistake. Instead, bishop f5 was the way to go, weakening this bishop's grasp over a6 and basically making white win the pawn. Now let's say something like h5, something random. Well, not particularly random, but a move that doesn't address the a6 problem. So you play rook g1, king h6, and now you take and just take h6, and you should be good to go. Here, by the way, you don't take like this, because you want to make use of the rook being present here. Though arguably the other capture is somewhat possible, I guess. Now, where the other capture is not possible is here, and that is taking with the rook. It's here. Here you can't take, sorry, not with the rook, with the king. Actually, it's different, but you get my point. Here, the other capture is not possible. After bishop takes f5, you can't take like this because rook a8 just defends the pawn. And again, we're into a fortress position. Instead, you take like this. The point being, after rook a8, you have knight d7. And that's why we took with the pawn, to prevent rook e6. So that's exactly why we did that. And knight f6 is coming. Just check here and win with knight f6. So That's why we took with the pawn, preventing the rook e6. Rook e6. So bishop f5 would have basically won. Unfortunately, he played rook g1. Unfortunately for Faisal, he played rook g1 and knight d6. So here, again, bishop f5 was an option. Yeah, with the same kind of ideas. But Faisal played bishop c2, which is somewhat of a mistake, as now we again see this kind of fortress. Rook e8 again was warranted, which he missed earlier. Instead he goes for f5, which is very bad because now the rooks will swing into the game and the game will be over. You have to go rook e8 to be able to play this rook h8 stuff. Now rook h2 and rook h6, making sure you get your rooks quickly into the game. So of course here if you take, for example, I just take back and I'm attacking the knight and attacking c6, and this doesn't look so swell. I think even taking like this is possible, but of course not necessary. Yeah, no, there is absolutely no need. So rook d8, and now Faisal slowly improves the position and gets in with the king. That's why this is winning, because the king is just so active, and the king over there on the black king is sidelined. And here he does well to not caring also about the pawn. He sees that he has two avenues to prevent its queening, so completely, oops, okay, I ruined some stuff, but of course you know the result. So he keeps pushing, and this was a fun move, intending not to get the king into the game. Quite clever actually. Instead this would allow the king into the game. And f4 was also clever by Joe, trying to open up the position so that the king can get into the game. And here is where the fireworks start. So here just king c6 would have been winning, and you escort this pawn and you're winning. He might have been afraid of some of these ideas, but these don't work. We'll see why in a later variation. Instead he goes for a6, and now it's a draw. And Joe messes up and goes for bishop g2. Now we'll see some long lines, but these all help illustrate what's going to happen, so take note. So after a6, black should play king takes d5. The point being, after a7, you have bishop d7, making use of this king's presence here. Of course, if you promote, bishop c6 check is coming. Let's put that on the board. Bishop c6 check. So with a draw. So knight c1, trying to defend that way, but here just no side can make progress. Okay, so that seems yeah, and here the king needs to stay here, because if you leave the bishop here, for example, there's this, among other things, this, so it's not working, and you're not quick enough to pick up this pawn and promote your own. So it's just a draw. So king takes d5 was needed. Instead Joe goes for bishop g2, which is losing. Now Faisal blunders right back and plays a7, which is actually very strange, seeing as how bishop takes f3 and you have bishop takes d5 now. So maybe he missed that it was a check, he thought he could promote or something, but this is just a check and you lose. So a7 is a blunder. Instead he should have played king c7. Now the point being, after king takes d5, you have a7 and you're going to promote, and this endgame isn't easy to win, but just take a look how you're going to do it, or think in terms of plans. So you're going to get the king down on the second half of White's camp, down in White's camp, and you're going to take the pawn, of course, and eventually you're going to maneuver around the light squared bishop to be able to get some dark squared control and perhaps win the bishop, and of course escort this pawn to become a queen. So let's see how that pans out. I know it's a bit difficult to imagine at first glance. So of course you have to maintain control of the pawns, not let any of them to queen, get the king in to help with that, and start driving black's king away. And now here you can see how you're doing that, and here you're going to take control this square and then escort this pawn, and it's completely winning. Instead he goes for a7, which is completely losing. Now by the way, king c7 here, takes, and you have simply this among other things, I think. So a7, bishop takes f3, king b6, and now yeah, black is just white is just losing. He promotes here to be able to play king c4 and take care of this pawn, but still losing. White is just losing. And here is the surprising thing. So he's trying to control this square. Now if he is able to control this square, he draws. The thing is though, he can't. After f2, white will eventually come into Zugzwang. So the reason is that when you come here, okay, the king will come here, and the bishop will control this diagonal. So this square will be prevented, and this diagonal will be prevented. So you have no way of actually defending the knight. So you'd have to go king b2 and lose the knight. And this is exactly what we'll see. If this wasn't clear, you'll see it now in this position. King c3, bishop here, c2, king e3. And now with king c1, as I was mentioning, bishop d3. You can't maintain any of your light squares, and if you push, I'll just take and you come up. I'll waste a tempo, and then you have to come down, and bishop d3 again happens. So let me illustrate that. So this is what's going to happen, and we're back with the same position, and now you have no moves and you're going to lose because promotion is incoming. And instead what we saw was king c3. So king c3 here. Actually I didn't input this. Yeah, king c3, you just go here, right? And there's no way to defend this knight and maintain the control over the promotion square. So f2 was winning. Instead bishop a4 check, the wrong check. Now you have king c3, and there's no way to come back to this position, unfortunately, because some of these checks are coming depending on the position. Of course, knight takes f3 is the immediate threat, obviously. Knight takes f3 is the immediate threat. So after f2, now knight f1 check, and you have this kind of position, and it's impossible. It's impossible to break through now because you have this as well. So the black bishop will have to lose itself to the music. So what a topsy-turvy game. Well, I really had fun analyzing this. It was honestly a splendid defensive effort and a splendid positional effort by Faisal as well, but a splendid defensive effort by Joe. I think the result is quite fair. Obviously Faisal will be quite upset about the result, and Joe should be rather happy the way he defended, but maybe also a bit unhappy the way he played the opening. But also considering he doesn't play the opening often, so I don't know. So yeah, both sides have some things to complain about and some things to be happy about, but why not be happy? Alright, so now we're done with the deep analysis part of this video, so let's go for the quick analysis. Alright, so we have here Kassis against Jawad. Now Jawad is a very strong player, make no mistake. He's obviously not 1700. Online I think he's rated 2400 in Blitz, so very strong player. And here we get to see some mistakes being committed. He likes to play this English setup, Jawad, as of late, but he kind of goes a bit haywire on the queen's side, not castling and all of that, but it works out reasonably. He's in a drawn position or equal position here, dynamically equal position. He's down a pawn, but he has some chances, what with his active pieces on the b file, especially on the queen on d6. But he messes up a bit here and allows Antoine to go for an attack, and Antoine wins another pawn and just keeps going with the attack and just some passed pawns, and the game is over. So not much to discuss actually. Antoine played supremely well. Ghnatios against Abdulaziz, that was a very nice game because it showcased how like I'm just switching this because I played the Grand Prix, the reverse Grand Prix myself. And here I just want to mention that e4 has to be played. There's no other way about it. And this kind of position promises a nice attack for black, and a difficult position ahead, which is uncharacteristic for, also this position itself is uncharacteristic for people who play the white side of this opening, the English. So it offers black good chances. Instead, e takes d4 just opens up the position in white's favor, and now he's a bit too optimistic with this. I definitely would have played b takes, by the way, and gone for some knight f4 ideas, but he doesn't. Still, I mean, the thing is, he has this bishop pair and it's just too strong. This is coming. No clue where this goes. c5 is a very nice move, preparing bishop a3. So yeah, just b6 isn't possible, of course, because of bishop takes. So yeah, just a very nicely played game by white, capitalizing on the opponent's blunder, of course. Ralph misplayed the opening simply and just got attacked. Look at this here. What a brilliant configuration here. I think even rook takes b7 is possible, but it's not necessary. And yeah, over. Okay, we have Nadim against Akram. Nadim against Akram. What game was that? Don't remember. Yeah, now I remember. Yeah. So Nadim played pretty well, Nadim Slim that is, but here he started miscalculating and went for something that's just not there. Here these pawns are going to prove to be a weakness, and this pawn is going to prove to be strong. And g4 is just GG. Very nice move, of course. This actually occurred, I see. Yeah, I guess there's no better alternative. And yeah, here it's just a foregone conclusion. So a good kind of Maroczy bind for Nadim, but like he messed up big time with those sacrifices. So Mahdi against Serge, somewhat of a normal opening, but white gets the bishop pair and bishop a2. Why is that so bad? So some tactics here. Maybe I'm going a bit too quickly through this. So you have to defend here takes, and now you have this idea. And d4 is given as questionable. Of course, like g3 is not going to be played, even though I can see why it could be played. But like g3 just allows some of these things, so some of these ideas, so not really. d4 takes. And yeah, here's the blunder. Yes, I remember this. So here, of course, you just take, and you have to accept this position. I guess queen takes g2, of course. And I guess Mahdi didn't like like here you have obviously no winning chances as white, and quite some losing chances. So he didn't like that. Instead, he goes for something a bit insane, but of course this just blunders due to this square. So rook e6 was strange, trying to go for these ideas, but this is just too slow. Instead, obviously, rook f8 is just too strong. And now if queen takes g2, the idea is you don't trade queens and you have a lot of attacking potential, and the rook is just misplaced. Like if the rook were here, at least you could play bishop d2 maybe now, but now you can't. You have to bring the rook back, and then queen d1 check comes. So yeah, this was just inattentive by Mahdi to play rook takes b7. Instead, Serge blunders back and plays rook e6. And here white won. Yeah, I mean, I can see why he'd resign, but I'd play on, right? And Serge isn't someone who usually resigns very quickly. So it's a bit strange, but yeah, this is what happened. Again, we need to go quickly through these games. Right. I said I said at the start I analyzed two games deeply. I actually analyzed 3 because this game, it's a big upset. Actually, it's not a big upset. Imad has been improving lately. Sorry, he's rated maybe 1900 classical. So this is a normal draw, but I analyzed it because actually the game is quite interesting. Now I remembered. Alright. So knight f3, c5, d3, knight b d2, knight c6. Standard King's Indian attack fare. But surprisingly, Imad always likes to pick the King's Indian attack. But surprisingly here he goes for something a bit more weird. Like, I don't know what to call this system. You go for the King's Indian attack setup, but instead of fianchettoing, you go bishop e2. A reverse Philidor, actually. This is exactly a reverse Philidor. Not exactly, but it's a reverse Philidor. Well, actually, it is exactly a reverse Philidor. Okay. So, castles and queen b6, which is a bit strange. In general, you want to play e5 and just open up for your bishop and potentially go for d4, cementing this kind of grip on the center. Instead he goes queen b6, a4, a6, and white is kind of maneuvering in a reasonable fashion. Now g3 could have been trying to fianchetto, but knight b3 can't be faulted so much. The problem with knight b3 is the very natural c4, of course, which I'm surprised wasn't played. You just gain control over the square. Now he might have been afraid of this and potentially winning this guy. But here, of course, you can just take like this. And then you have to calculate some of this stuff. So I don't really blame him for not playing c4. Instead, he goes e5 and now a5. Brilliant move, gaining big time space on the queen side and forcing queen a7, of course, because you can't go to c7, you lose the c5 pawn. So queen a7, look at this queen, look at this bishop, this rook is what is this a rook? So this looks like a very good position for white, right? And it is. Instead he goes bishop d2, which is very passive and misplaces the pieces. Like, he sees development as a very important goal, which it is, but here you don't need to develop. You need to put your knights on good squares. You need to put your pieces on good squares. Bishop d2 is, of course, usually it's even a half development move. If you don't know that, bishop d2, bishop d7. Yeah, those are usually considered half development moves. So yeah, it's not really helping much. It's just discombobulating your forces. So bishop d2 though was played. Instead, of course, e takes d5, opening up the position for knight b d2, knight c4, knight e4, these kinds of ideas. Especially when the knight comes to c4, you have this, which would say bye-bye to the rook, which you wouldn't even take in that scenario, to be honest. So bishop d2, yeah, sometimes, of course, the octopus knight is stronger than the rook. And bishop e6 here should have been trying to develop. It's a bit weird that he went for this bishop, which already moved back and then moved forward. So it's a bit, at least, like, it's funny, like, remember from the, Joe game, Joe should have admitted his mistake and went back with queen d8. Instead, he didn't. And here, Khaled shouldn't have admitted to his mistake and played bishop d6 back, because it was better to play something else. It's kind of funny how that occurred. I just noticed that. So here white has the potential to play e takes knight takes d5, and this position is about equal. The queen is terrible on a7, but in turn black has some rather solid pieces, while white is and this also so here bishop c1, intending to go for knight d2. Queen c1 is also possible, trying to sacrifice at some point with these kinds of ideas, so that's a bit of an optimistic move. And d4 is also possible, blasting open the center. There are lots of complications that go on here, but in general it should be about equal with the liquidation. Basically what happens in the end is black gets a pawn here, but the pawn is super weak. Yeah, So that's for e takes d5, which should have been played. Instead h3, preventing bishop g4. I can understand that in spirit, like you're restricting your opponent's moves, especially this slide squared bishop. But the slide squared bishop has a natural square in bishop e6, which it goes to. And now knight c1, another very passive move. See the problem with bishop d2? Now you have to play moves like knight c1. Not desirable at all. b5 and knight e2. Another strange move, I guess, relocating here, but unfortunately it loses tactically. Instead, better was a takes b6, queen takes b6. And now you also see something similar to the first round, where we were seeing a game between I think it was Moghni against Abdulaziz, right? Where there was this dilemma whether to take en passant and lose because of this pressure on the b file, or to not take en passant and lose because of taking on e4, which is what happened in the game. Now always the lesser evil is taking en passant. So this is why but also Imad makes the same mistake and doesn't take en passant. The lesser evil is taking en passant because at least you open up the position and allow your pieces to have more defensive chances. Alright, so knight e2, queen c7, which is a mistake, of course. I should annotate it as such. Actually, let's not, but yeah, it's a mistake because it doesn't capitalize on white's mistake, which is knight e2. Now, how do you capitalize? You take here, and now queen c7. The point being, you can't really defend the pawn this way. Now, actually, queen c7 was played in the game, but Khaled didn't notice a minor detail, which we'll look at just in a minute. Yeah, so here, if you want to defend, takes, and here comes this, and you're not going to be able to defend this square and this square. Notice the queen is it's not doing a dual job, but actually it will do a dual job, which is preserve these two pawns. So okay, c1, and now queen e7, attacking this. There's no way to defend. Even if you go here, it's not defending it, and you just take. And that would be how you win a pawn and the game, basically. Instead, he went for queen c7 immediately, which isn't actually threatening this. So he goes knight g3, and now you see that Khaled blunders. It's not threatening this. The best course of action was this, and now c4. And here I included an engine line because it showcases some, not some, or all of the deficiencies in white's position. So the big deficiency, of course, is this pawn is a weakness. So how does the engine see how you can maintain this? You play rook a2, and you like, just imagine, and now bishop c5. Black's pieces are on the d file, and what are white's pieces? What are the rooks doing on the a file? And you get to see this this big time pressure on f2 as well. Bishop coming to c1. Yuck! This is so disgusting. Everything is hanging by a thread. And yeah, while white might have theoretical fortress chances, it's going to be tough to hold this in a practical game. Instead, Khaled blunders, not seeing that after c4, which attacks the knight, you can't go knight c6 because of the fork. So he has to go knight b7, and here white wins back the pawn with interest. Now actually, c takes d5 was a bit of an error. E takes d5 should have been tried, intending to basically win this pawn, and if it's defended, you play b3, which is a very clever move, intending to meet b4, which would get the bishop off the diagonal. Now the bishop has the b2 square to make use of, and you have several plans here. You can play on the queen side, for example, pressure on a6, or more likely you can play in the center, pressure on e5, and you have this ability to maneuver knight h5, knight f5, and knight h4, knight f5, so all is good, and white would be much better. Instead, c takes d5 allows black to kind of be fine with this potential weakness here. The weakness on e5 was much greater, obviously. And now white tries to go for some things, trying to sacrifice perhaps on h6, but black prevents that. And here they agreed to a premature draw. The game was still, of course, very interesting. But of course it's difficult to see how both sides can make progress without maybe sacrificing something in return. So a reasonable outcome. I'd bet the players were definitely tired after all of these potential calculations here. So it was a very nice game. So yeah, it was very nice, especially because of the unique ideas you see in this game, with this a5 stuff, with this the queen being on a7 kind of trapped, knight c1 not being such a great, like the bishop coming to d2 preventing knight d2, which is something you'd think is good, but it's not. This half developing move here, the idea with b4, and here the idea with taking with the other pawn. So some very interesting nuances here that that help one understand the game better. Okay, so the game against Sursock against Roaa. Roaa, if you remember, played a very nice king and pawn endgame the previous round. Instead here she gets very much outplayed by her more experienced opponent. So this is a very normal setup, but now Samir starts going for the gutso. And you can see here that he plays a nice tactic and just crushing attack. So just the whole point of this game, when the knight came to e5, it was already over. Because this is such a strong attacking setup. So this is basically a stonewall attack on steroids. Alright, so next up we have Mohamad Fawaz against Giorgio Kaloust, which was a very equal position until Giorgio got the better of Mohamad in the end game. So some maneuvering here, and here, yeah, it's a bit too trade happy to play queen takes b5, but I can understand why he did it. And here he blunders, which is a very nice tactic that that Giorgio set up. Very nice. Like, all of this flows so well for white, for black. Here you just have to suffer in a lost king and pawn endgame. Now I'm surprised like e5 is losing. Yeah, actually it makes more sense though to just bring the king in and later push your pawns. The reason it's losing, of course, is that in this position you can break apart the pawns and get the king in. So let's follow this line a bit. Yeah, this would be losing as such. Drawn as such. Instead, he just loses another pawn, and 2 pawns is too many. And it's a loss. Alright, next up. We have still a lot of games, so let's zoom through. So you remember Mark Youssef beat Mahmoud Mansarani, so he was trying to maybe get another one here. Now, by the way, here actually c3 was included, so it's a bit different to the one I play. I play a similar position as this, but without c3 included, and knight a3, of course. Bishop c4. The engine prefers knight c4, which makes more sense, to be honest, having these 2 squares in mind. Instead, he goes for an isolated queen pawn position, and Mark falls for the bait. Of course, you should just castle and then consider taking the pawn, but here he falls for the bait, and this is going to be tragic because the king is still isn't even like 1 square close to castling. So this is what occurred. Maybe Tarek had a few better ways to win, but all of these were good enough. So next chapter, just remember to castle, guys. Samir against Michael Fursley. Now this is, both of them are rated like 1900, or should be. So maybe I should have done this game justice and analyzed it, but we're already spending a lot of time in this video. Now obviously I'd imagine Samir has a big pull here. especially with this h4 breaking move. But too many pieces get traded, and eventually Michael is able to draw this. Actually, oh, he got a nice advantage. Ah yeah, he gets an advantage here because actually black just loses the pawn. What's surprising is that, yeah, you'd imagine this pawn, he was over eager to kind of win it. What should he have played instead? The engine recommends knight d3. Yeah, it's not so clear actually for black. Yeah, but playing g6 obviously a mistake. Playing g5, I mean. Trying to go for g6 because now you can't go for king g6. So the pieces are just so passive, and look at this masterclass. The bishop is just so passive and these pawns are very strong. Ah wow, he traded. Oof. Yeah, okay, he wasn't seeing a way to make progress. The engine wants 96. I see. Okay, this is how you win then. Very nice. And this is all intuitive, right guys? Because this pawn, if this pawn falls, everything falls quite easily. And if you take, you guys know this, these two pawns, they're stronger than rook. So yeah, rather shocking he didn't play knight e6. Well, it's not shocking, but yeah, it's something definitely Michael could have seen. Instead, knight b5, and this is just a Dromaningos. Oh, what a nice game. Adib against Hadi. Remember Hadi, the guy who crushed in the against the Dura scam, not yeah, Adib is a professional against this playing the same-ish against the King's Indian defense. He plays it very, very well. And here we can see that knight b6 is obviously wrong, because what is the knight doing here? Remember the Russian school of chess? Knight on b6 or knight on b3. So going forward here. Yeah, just a brilliant crush here. He blundered somewhere. Ow. Allowing rook d8. Ouch. But wait, that's not a trap. Huh? Why is this so good? This is something the engine rook b6. I was thinking rook b6, you have this. So that was a queen trap. Wow. Huh. Hadi could have trapped Adib's queen. That would have been tragic. And here is not even winning. Just knight c7, activate the knight. Instead he allows this endgame for whatever reason. He might have thought he had enough pawns, but the passed pawns with the rook, as we've seen in the Ronald against Firzli game, right? Ronald against Michael game, where I told you guys to keep the piece of its kind from Larry Kaufman. Yeah. Alright, we need to zoom through these games, taking way too much time. So a hippo setup by Danielle. This, I guess, is her preparation here. And it seems very reasonable. Yeah, completely fine position. Oh, taking here is a big mistake. No, you can't do that. You just isolate all of these pawns. What's taking? That's a bit strange. And yeah, so just a big positional blunder. She got a nice advantage out of the hippo. The hippo is a deadly weapon. Alright. Noor against Raymond in French. Yeah, this kind of position when black gets these two guys here, not so good. An opening improvement would have been to take, of course. take, and yeah, I have the system. You guys probably have seen it. And is b6 played now? Yeah. And yeah, just am I remembering this correctly? Yeah, bishop g5, queen d2 and castles, right? Yes. So this is a system I play. Here black is already equalizing. I'm not sure why the engine thinks this is better. Ah, knight c5, okay. Yeah, and just a blunder here, which is surprising for Noor. Surprising blunder by Noor. Ah, she calculated. Whoa. Okay, yeah, Noor. Wow. Calculation, insane. But here it didn't work out. But the other game, remember the one against Marwan? And the first round? Yeah, here. Yeah, the bishop only has... But no, what happens if this? Then the knight isn't escaping, of course. Or is there something like this? Yeah. Okay, maybe this was possible, but... This threatening checkmate. Well, it's not made. I think even this is possible, right? But completely unnecessary, of course. Yeah, instead f5. Again threatening h6, h7. And here it's just not enough. Yeah, nice play. Nice play by Noor. Nice calculation. Mahmoud against Fawaz. Yeah, not developing and playing c5, getting your bishop out. This is a classic mistake against Nadim. Yeah, just wins a pawn. And soon enough gets a very nice strong knight. And pulls up some endgame magic. Mahmoud is very strong at endgames. Alright. Karim, whoa, had a chance against Sharif. Okay. So a kind of relatively normal setup, though a5 is hyper aggressive on the king side, queen side, preventing b4, I guess, which is clever. And gets a stronghold on c5. Alright, so far good positional play. White really here is lacking a plan. Queen b3 is just weird. You need to start preparing the stuff. You don't have many better alternatives as white. So black is playing with purpose, putting their knights on c5, while white is not. Having said that, white somehow... Ooh. Yikes. Oof. Isn't the queen? No, it's not. It is. I thought the queen was trapped. It's not, because this is hanging. Yeah, and this is hanging, of course, so he takes. Instead, rook e7. Ah, aggressive. And trapping the queen like this. And why is knight e6 to cover g7? Why not this? I guess this runs into other problems. Ah, yeah, this. And if check and here. Which still isn't clear, but yeah, okay. We don't need to analyze this, or maybe we do. Yeah, I mean, it's clear this will be winning eventually. Ah, he liquidates. He trades. Yeah, when you have... Yeah, here you're up the exchange, and the problem for black is the king is so badly placed, so... Yeah. Feels bad for Karim. He had a good chance here. Eventually he gets outplayed in the end game. Even though still it's technically a draw, but giving up the pawn like this, maybe he thought he was winning the bishop, but just king e6 or king e8 even. Yeah. And remember, two pawns better than rook. Yeah. Alright, so Ronald against Adam against Ronald. Standard kind of fair here. Knight b3 is strange. Like, why not knight c4 or something? What's the knight doing on b3? Oh, it just blunders a pawn. Oh. Yeah, seems to be a badly played game by Adam. Adam is a very promising youth player. He was, I think, like similar to Sky. He was like 6 years old and performing very well. I think he's like 9 now or something. I think he hasn't played chess a lot in the past few years. Test, okay. Just want to make sure. Alright, so here we have now this is the stonewall attack. But white is playing so strangely. Like you need to form the battery queen d3 bishop c2, or at least attempt to. Yeah, if you don't have an attack in the stonewall attack, you're losing. He just gets mauled on the king side, queen side. Yep. Okay, Antoine against Jennifer. So, yeah, this was a very, very timid game. Actually, Antoine is playing a good setup against the Tarek, but he takes the wrong pawn. He should have taken here. This is the way to get an advantage. Now this is just a bit trade happy. No, actually, it's yeah. I'm checking the engine event. No. It's fine, right? Is this a low depth trick? No, it's also fine, of course, because the bishop is locked in. Yeah, let's use our positional understanding. Now here, trading is strange. Like, Antoine is, in theory, stronger than... well, not in theory. Like, he's stronger than Jennifer. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know Jennifer's rating. She's definitely not 1000 rated. So I don't know if she's improved a lot. She's a youth player. I don't know how much she's improved, but... what was I trying to say? Yeah, I mean, you should avoid queen trades. I was this is funny because in the Hammer against Antoine game, I was saying how he should have traded, and there you have an advantage. Here the advantage isn't really clear, so just play something like queen e2 and rook d1 and go from there. My opinion. Knight e5. Yeah, the engine recommends knight c3. Maybe even something like this, trying to stop any later e5s. Because here she was able to get the bishop out, which shouldn't have happened. Oh, wow. Knight takes d4. What? She didn't take here? Whoa, Antoine lost a piece. Wow. Okay. Yeah, she missed a big opportunity. And yeah, here the game is just drawn. Lots of nothing. Okay, let's maybe go through them slowly. Yeah, just nothing. White does enjoy the better pawn structure, but it's not enough. The position is way too locked up. And Daniel Deeb against Joseph Abirashid. Daniel again. No, was it Daniel who played like this? No, that was Roaa, who played well on the queen side as well. So they both of them know their. I wonder if they train together, being two female youth players. So yeah, again similar as well. A good rook endgame. Rook takes d6. Nice, nice, impressive, impressive. Where did it go wrong? Here, just 3 pawns up. Conversion should be easy. The conversion should be easy. Oh, yuck. Yeah, she had some problems converting here. Here as well. Yeah, e7 makes more sense, of course. Oh, e7 you might be afraid of. Yeah, but rook bishop you have rook plus bishop you have the h pawn. Yeah, she just blundered. Oof. How did she win this? How did she win this? Oof. 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 Okay, mutual time pressure, I assume. Whoa. Clever. Now it's some kind of fortress. Oh damn. Alright. Okay. So Wissam against Kate. I haven't taken a look at the lower boards for round 2, by the way, so my first time seeing them. Yeah, very nice positional play by by Wissam Aid. I can't believe. Oh gosh. What's wrong with me? Wait, what happened here? I was laughing at this joke. My faux pas, not a joke. Did he sacrifice for no reason? Yeah, he just lost 2 pawns for no reason. And sacrificed in exchange. And even lost. Whoa! Wow, how did he win this game? Oof! Yowza! Ah, poor Kate. Yeah, just defend like this. And try to get your queen into the game somehow. Like your queen isn't really doing much. Also, rook f6 isn't just defending, it's attacking here. Bishop d7 was just like too clever, I feel. Oof. Wow. Yeah, but to be fair, Wissam played a brilliant game from the opening in this Rui. Yeah, brilliant positional game. And we see Sky against Mughniye. Yeah, she's just developing. Okay, great for a 6-year-old. Here maybe h3 or something. Ah, she drops the bishop. Okay. Yeah, let's go through this a bit slowly. Like, of course, okay, you don't need to see this, but just for completeness sake. Ah, you do need to see this. It was drawn. What? Ooh, the queen is trapped. Or at least perpetual. Ah, the king is perpetual. I thought the queen was going to be perpetual. Like as follows. And then here. Yeah, but no, it's not perpetual. Perpetual, a funny word I just created. Not the word, I created Okay. Okay, I wonder what happened here. Okay, so standard stuff. Well, not too standard, but okay. Oh, okay. Sure. Over aggressive, but seems to have paid out. Yikes. Queen e7, but it shouldn't have gotten to that, right? Yeah, Queen g8. Queen g8 is yeah, Queen g8 is a good, very good move. Start preparing this, get your rook into the game. This is what and prevent, of course, any of these ideas. Yeah, this is what's required. Instead, he loses the queen. Okay. So, Mohamad Hassoun against Paul Assaad. What happened here? Ooh. Ouch. Ouchies. Ouch town. Yeah, Queen h4 check would be interesting. Because after g3 I assume this is particularly nasty. This would be mate, obviously. So yeah, instead he doesn't play that, but plays something that's winning as well. c5. Yeah. Ouch, nice tactic here. So knight d3 check is a threat. No, really. Yeah, I mean, if you want to prevent that, you're losing because of some rook d8 ideas. Obviously, it's just completely lost. And again, we'll go through this for completeness sake. Obviously, nothing bad happened here. Yep. And we have Bashar against Sally. Bashar is rated about 2100 in Blitz on Lichess. Knight d5, it likes knight d5 more? Yeah, okay. You're threatening this. And what's wrong with this? Here you also win a piece, but I guess there's e4. Yeah. You play this to prevent e4. Okay, so you don't win a piece here. I see. So you need to play knight d5 to win the piece. e5 is rather optimistic considering you're not developed on the queen side, you don't have the bishop out, and you're not even castle. So yeah, develop your pieces. Okay. Probably missed the bishop here. Else she would have played like bishop c8 at least. She missed that the bishop was hanging. Alright. Nice fork. Cute. Yeah, we zoomed through that. And Anthony against Ali. So seems to be a positional crush by Mr. Ali. The game is of course completely equal, nothing much to discuss. Both sides are playing rather tepidly, to be honest. I see. Okay, yeah, the d pawn will prove to be a weakness if you aren't careful. And apparently Anthony was not. So yeah. Yeah, the d pawn is just lost, and yep. Alright, so that's it for this video, guys. Definitely the lower boards, I like going through them because there are some hidden gems there. So hopefully you find this part of the video instructive, and if you don't want to watch that, you can watch of course the first part, which is deeply analyzed and quite educational, hopefully. So I hope you got something out of this video, guys. Another hour-long video. Round 3, maybe I don't know, it's going to be longer because the deeply analyzed games will be much more. So yeah, we'll see what we do about that. Alright, thank you guys for watching and take care.